It had been raining that night, the kind of rain that doesn't rush but lingers, steady and silent, like it knew what was about to happen. Mary stood at the edge of the living room, arms folded, her fingers digging into the fabric of her sweater, like she was holding back something that had been growing inside her for far too long. Across from her, William leaned against the doorway, half lit by the glow of the lamp behind him. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even confused. He was tired, the kind of tired that comes from guilt you're not ready to admit yet. They had just returned from Reynaldo's birthday dinner. Mary had looked stunning in her deep emerald dress. William had said nothing. Erica had laughed a little too much at William's jokes. William had smiled a little too long back. It wasn't new. Mary had seen the slow shift for weeks, but that night, she knew something had snapped. You didn't have to embarrass me in front of everyone, she finally said, her voice low, trembling but steady. William exhaled. I didn't embarrass you. You told Reynaldo I overthink everything, that I live in my feelings too much. And then you laughed. They all laughed. It was just a joke, he said. You're taking it too personally, like always. There it was again. Like always. Mary stared at him, blinking slowly, absorbing every word like it was poison. You made a joke out of me, and then came home like we were still something. William looked away, jaw tightening. Why are you being so dramatic? That word, dramatic. She hated it. It was what he called her when he didn't want to deal with her emotions, when he wanted her to shrink into something easier, something quieter. She took a step closer, voice shaking now. Do you even love me anymore? He didn't answer, just looked at her like the question was a test he hadn't studied for, like love was something he used to feel but couldn't find the trace of anymore. Mary didn't cry. She had done enough of that last week, last month, the last year. Instead, she turned, walked into the bedroom, and started packing, not loud, not angry, just done. William followed her in, but not to stop her, not really. Maybe part of him thought she'd cool off and stay. Maybe he thought she wouldn't leave without a bigger fight. Where are you gonna go? He asked quietly. She didn't look at him. Anywhere but here. He laughed, bitter, unsure. You're being ridiculous. Mary zipped the suitcase. After everything, after the night you loved me and still found a way to insult me? I'm not ridiculous, William. I'm just finally done pretending this still feels like love. The door clicked behind her an hour later. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't slam it. She just left. Her phone was off by the time William tried to call. She disappeared, like smoke into air. No note, no trace, no forwarding address. And William? He stood alone in the living room, surrounded by the silence he'd helped build, realizing too late that silence wasn't peace, it was punishment. Days slipped into weeks, and William couldn't stop checking his phone. Each morning he stared at it like it owed him an explanation, a message, a missed call, even an accidental text. But there was nothing. Mary had truly disappeared. He tried to tell himself she was just being stubborn, that she'd come back once she cooled off. But deep down, beneath the pride and defensiveness, he knew better. This time was different. This time, he hadn't just pushed her, he'd broken something. It wasn't until Reynaldo dropped by one afternoon that William said anything out loud. She really left? Reynaldo asked, standing awkwardly in the doorway like he wasn't sure if he should come in. Yeah. William didn't look up. He sat on the couch, wearing the same hoodie he'd worn 3 days in a row, his eyes hollow like sleep had been a stranger. Reynaldo stepped in, closing the door behind him. You look like hell. William gave a bitter laugh. Feels about right. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence sat heavy, filled only by the ticking of the wall clock. Another reminder of time that wouldn't pause for grief. You know, Reynaldo finally said, I think you knew she'd leave. You just didn't think she'd do it. William looked up slowly, like the words had struck him somewhere deep. What's that supposed to mean? You've been pushing her away for months, man. Joking in front of people, ignoring the stuff she cares about, making her feel small. You loved her, sure, but you didn't protect her love. Not once. William flinched. You think I don't know that? Then why'd you do it? Reynaldo asked, and it didn't come from anger, it came from something worse. Disappointment. William didn't answer. Maybe because he didn't know. Maybe because the answer wasn't simple. Or maybe because admitting it would mean facing the part of himself he tried to hide. After Reynaldo left, William walked around the apartment like he was seeing it for the first time. The photo of him and Mary at the beach. She had taken it on one of their last real vacations. Before everything began to unravel, he reached for it, but couldn't bring himself to touch it. Instead, he turned it face down and walked away. He remembered how she used to hum when she cooked, how she'd leave little notes on the bathroom mirror, how she used to wait up for him, even when he was hours late and didn't have a good excuse. And then came Erica. She hadn't done anything wrong, not really. She was just there, at work, at dinners, in the conversations William didn't want to have at home. She laughed at his jokes, made him feel seen in a way that didn't ask much from him. But it wasn't love, not even close. He thought about calling Erica, but the idea made him sick. Not because of her, but because he knew exactly what it would look like a man running to the nearest comfort after losing the woman who truly mattered. And he wasn't ready to be that man, not anymore. He opened his laptop and stared at a blank search bar. Should he look for her? Try to find her on social media? Ask her friends? Or would that just make it worse? He closed the laptop without typing a single word. Instead, he grabbed his keys and walked out the door, not knowing where he was going, just knowing he couldn't sit in that empty silence one more second. Mary, meanwhile, had found a small studio in a city where no one knew her name. She didn't cry often, just at night sometimes, when the streetlights hit the window at the exact same angle William used to turn his head when he said her name. She was rebuilding, slowly, carefully. She had no idea William was unraveling without her, but she didn't need to, because for once, Mary had chosen herself. Mary didn't speak to anyone from her old life. She'd blocked numbers, deleted accounts, wiped out traces, like she was scrubbing herself clean of everything she used to be and of William most of all. Her new apartment was small but warm, with creaky floors and mismatched furniture she picked out herself. It wasn't luxury, but it was hers. Quiet, peaceful, safe. She worked mornings at a flower shop down the street, spending her days surrounded by scent and color and soft music. The owner, Mrs. Elgin, was a widow in her 60s who loved gossip and lemon tea. She never asked too many questions, and Mary was grateful for that. She just needed time to be invisible, time to heal. But healing, Mary realized, wasn't always graceful. Some days she woke up with a weight on her chest that made it hard to breathe. Other days, she smiled at customers and felt nothing behind it. Her heart hadn't stopped loving William all at once. No, it unraveled slowly, like thread slipping from a spool. Every memory, every regret, peeling away bit by bit. One afternoon, as she arranged a bouquet of pale roses and sunflowers, a familiar voice interrupted her rhythm. "Mary?" She froze. It wasn't William. Not even close. She turned slowly, her stomach tightening. "Erica," she said, voice quiet and flat. Erica looked different, more polished than ever, wearing a blazer like she'd just come from a meeting, not a surprise drop-in. She held a paper coffee cup like it was armor, something to do with her hands. Mary noticed the slight hesitation in her eyes, like even Erica wasn't sure if she should have come. "I didn't mean to just show up. I wasn't sure you were even here, but I heard from someone at the firm that you left town. I figured it out." Mary set the flowers down and wiped her hands on her apron carefully. "You figured it out? Why?" Erica took a slow breath. "Because William's falling apart." Mary didn't flinch. She just blinked once. "That doesn't explain why you're here." "I thought you deserved to know," Erica said. He's not seeing anyone. Not me. Not anyone. He barely talks to people. I think he misses you, Mary. He regrets everything." Mary raised an eyebrow. "Did he send you?" "No," Erica said quickly. "He doesn't even know I'm here." Mary looked down at her hands. They were trembling slightly, but not from fear, from anger, a soft, bitter heat that settled beneath her ribs. "You laughed with him, you know, that night, when he humiliated me in front of everyone." Erica nodded slowly. "I know, and I've thought about that night 100 times. I should have said something. I should have stood up for you." Mary's throat felt tight. "But you didn't." "No," Erica whispered. "I didn't. And I hate that about myself." For a moment, neither woman said anything. The quiet hum of the shop filled the air between them. "I didn't come here to make excuses," Erica added. "I came to say I'm sorry. And that if you ever do go back, or if you don't, it's your choice. But he's not the same man who let you walk away." Mary felt something shift in her chest, something she hadn't allowed to move in a long time. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a door cracking open just enough for the air to change. She didn't invite Erica in. She didn't ask how William was eating or sleeping, or how long he stared at the phone before bed. She didn't need to know. But that night, when the lights were off and the rain came again, not heavy, not dramatic, just soft against the window, she reached for her journal and wrote one word, maybe, not for him, for herself. Mary didn't speak to anyone from her old life. She'd blocked numbers, deleted accounts, wiped out traces like she was scrubbing herself clean of everything she used to be and of William most of all. Her new apartment was small but warm. With creaky floors and mismatched furniture she picked out herself. It wasn't luxury, but it was hers. Quiet, peaceful, safe. She worked mornings at a flower shop down the street, spending her days surrounded by scent and color and soft music. The owner, Mrs. Elgin, was a widow in her 60s who loved gossip and lemon tea. She never asked too many questions, and Mary was grateful for that. She just needed time. Time to be invisible. Time to heal. But healing, Mary realized, wasn't always graceful. Some days she woke up with a weight on her chest that made it hard to breathe. Other days, she smiled at customers and felt nothing behind it. Her heart hadn't stopped loving William all at once. No, it unraveled slowly, like thread slipping from a spool. Every memory, every regret, peeling away bit by bit. One afternoon, as she arranged a bouquet of pale roses and sunflowers, a familiar voice interrupted her rhythm. Mary? She froze. It wasn't William. Not even close. She turned slowly, her stomach tightening. Erica, she said, voice quiet and flat. Erica looked different, more polished than ever, wearing a blazer like she'd just come from a meeting, not a surprise drop-in. She held a paper coffee cup like it was armor, something to do with her hands. Mary noticed the slight hesitation in her eyes, like even Erica wasn't sure if she should have come. I didn't mean to just show up. I wasn't sure you were even here, but I heard from someone at the firm that you left town. I figured it out. Mary set the flowers down and wiped her hands on her apron carefully. You figured it out. Why? Erica took a slow breath. Because William's falling apart. Mary didn't flinch. She just blinked once. That doesn't explain why you're here. I thought you deserved to know, Erica said. He's not seeing anyone. Not me. Not anyone. He barely talks to people. I think he misses you, Mary. He regrets everything. Mary raised an eyebrow. Did he send you? No, Erica said quickly. He doesn't even know I'm here. Mary looked down at her hands. They were trembling slightly, but not from fear, from anger, a soft, bitter heat that settled beneath her ribs. You laughed with him, you know, that night, when he humiliated me in front of everyone. Erica nodded slowly. I know, and I've thought about that night 100 times. I should have said something. I should have stood up for you. Mary's throat felt tight. But you didn't. No, Erica whispered. I didn't. And I hate that about myself. For a moment, neither woman said anything. The quiet hum of the shop filled the air between them. I didn't come here to make excuses, Erica added. I came to say I'm sorry. And that if you ever do go back or if you don't, it's your choice. But he's not the same man who let you walk away. Mary felt something shift in her chest, something she hadn't allowed to move in a long time. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a door cracking open just enough for the air to change. She didn't invite Erica in. She didn't ask how William was eating or sleeping, or how long he stared at the phone before bed. She didn't need to know. But that night, when the lights were off and the rain came again, not heavy, not dramatic, just soft against the window, she reached for her journal and wrote one word, maybe, not for him, for herself. His apartment was cleaner now, not because he cared about the mess, but because the silence demanded something to do. He filled his nights with dishes, laundry, sweeping, mechanical tasks to drown out thoughts of Mary. Still, every corner held a ghost of her. The faint scent of her shampoo in the pillowcase he hadn't changed. Her favorite tea unopened in the cabinet. A hair tie left on the sink like she'd be back for it. He hadn't touched another woman. Not even once. Not after her. Erica had checked in once or twice, but he kept it short, always. She'd made it clear she wasn't going to insert herself anymore, and honestly, he didn't blame her. He'd used her presence like a mirror, something to feel seen in, not something to build love with. One evening, as he sat on the floor near the window, sipping cheap whiskey he didn't even like, A thought pressed against his chest with unbearable weight. What if she never comes back? He deserved that. He knew it. But still, he picked up his phone again. Still nothing. Her number was still blocked. He hadn't tried to go around it. Not really. Deep down, he feared what reaching out might say, that he'd broken her in ways she couldn't come back from. But that fear didn't stop the ache. Elsewhere, Mary was waking up earlier these days. Her eyes still held sadness, but her movements carried strength now. She walked with more certainty, even if her heart wasn't fully healed. And when she looked at her reflection each morning, she didn't see the woman who left, she saw the woman who chose to leave. That made all the difference. She hadn't called him. She still hadn't unblocked his number. It took Mary 3 days to decide what to do with the letter. She carried it everywhere, tucked in her coat, then her purse, then under her pillow. Each time she read it, it stirred something different. The first time, it hurt. The second, it made her angry. But the third time, she cried, not because of the pain, but because it was the first time she truly believed he meant it. She didn't tell anyone. Not even Mrs. Elgin. Not even the new friend she'd made in her building, who often invited her over for wine and movies. This part of her life, this decision, felt too private, too delicate to be touched by outside voices. By the end of the week, Mary did something she hadn't done in a long time. She unblocked his number. She didn't text him. Not yet. But she wanted him to have the chance, if he needed it. That night, William was standing on his balcony, staring at the dark city skyline, when his phone buzzed. One buzz, a quiet little tremor. He looked down and saw it. Mary has unblocked you. He dropped the cigarette he hadn't even lit, his heart pounding like it had forgotten how to beat right. He stared at the screen for a long time, unsure what it meant. Was it a mistake? A message? An invitation? He didn't know what to say. Didn't want to say too much. Didn't want to scare her off. He sat at the kitchen table, typed out a message, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. He did this 7 times before he finally settled on just one sentence. Thank you. That was it. 2 words. Honest. Small. Enough. Mary read the message without smiling, but her eyes softened. The next day, she called him. The moment he picked up, the silence between them felt alive. Mary, he said, barely above a whisper. I read your letter, she replied, her voice clear but slow, like she was choosing each word carefully. Every word. I meant all of it. I know. A pause. I'm not calling to say I'm coming back, she said. I don't even know what this is yet. That's okay, William replied, his voice breaking a little. Just hearing your voice is more than I thought I'd ever get. I'm still angry, she added. You should be. I still don't trust you. I understand. She paused again. But I've thought about you a lot, and not because I miss the past. I don't. I miss who we were before we lost each other in all the wrong ways. William felt a sting in his chest. So what now? I'm not asking for anything, she said, but I'll be in the park near the bookstore tomorrow, noon. Then she hung up. William stared at the phone long after the call ended, like he needed to make sure it was real. The next morning, he woke up early, shaved, pulled out his least wrinkled shirt, and left the apartment with a heart that felt like it was being carried in someone else's hands. Mary was already sitting on the bench when he got there. She wore that soft beige coat he always loved, her hair pulled back simply, no makeup, no mask. He approached slowly. Hey, he said. Hi. They sat side by side, a few inches of space between them that felt both massive and manageable. Neither spoke for a long moment. They just listened to the wind rustling through the trees, the sounds of dogs barking, children laughing in the distance. I'm not here to fix anything today, Mary said softly. I just wanted to remember what it felt like to sit next to you without pain. William looked at her, and something inside him broke. Not in a painful way, but like something old and bitter falling away. That's more than I deserve, he whispered. Mary didn't argue. She just let the silence hold them for a little longer. And somehow, in that stillness, something small but real began again. Not forgiveness, not love, but the fragile beginning of maybe. Mary didn't expect to see William again so soon after the park. She had told herself it was a one-time thing, a soft closure, a conversation to end the ache properly. But there was something about the way he listened that day. Really listened. It made her remember why she fell in love with him in the first place. Long before the sarcasm, the distance, and the hollow apologies. 3 days later, he texted, no pressure, but there's a jazz night at the old spot. Thought you might like it. I'll be there. Either way. She stared at the message for a long time. He didn't beg, didn't guilt her, just left the door open wide enough for her to walk through if she chose, but not wide enough to trap her. And she did choose, not out of nostalgia, not out of weakness, but because part of her wanted to see who he was now, not who he used to be. When she arrived, the place was mostly unchanged. Warm lights, slow music, the soft clink of glasses. But it felt different somehow. Maybe it was her. Maybe it was him. William stood as she entered, eyes wide like he didn't fully believe she'd come. He looked good, but not in the way she remembered. Not polished or rehearsed, just present. She sat across from him. You're early, he said, a cautious smile on his lips. I didn't want to second guess it. They ordered drinks, talked about music, the band, nothing heavy. It was almost easy, but beneath the surface, everything felt fragile, like they were walking through glass, trying not to break anything too soon. After the second set, William leaned forward slightly. I wanted to ask you something, he said, voice softer than before. Not about us, about you. She raised an eyebrow. What made you leave? Really? Mary blinked, surprised. I thought you knew. I thought I did too, he admitted, but I never asked. I just blamed you for walking away instead of facing what I did. Mary looked down at her hands, remembering that night again, the way the laughter cut through her chest like a blade. I left because I realized I was waiting for you to see me, to choose me, and you just never did. You loved me, but only when it was convenient, only when it didn't make you uncomfortable. William nodded slowly, his throat tight. You're right. I used to see your feelings as problems, when really, they were just proof you cared more than I ever deserved. They fell silent again, not out of discomfort but understanding. The next day, he didn't text. Neither did she, but she thought about him. And for the first time in a long while, it didn't hurt. A week passed, then two. They exchanged a few messages, sometimes short, sometimes thoughtful. He sent her a photo of a book he found that reminded him of her. She sent him a recipe she used to cook when they were happy, and slowly, gently, they started talking like old friends. Not lovers, not yet, but something changed the evening. William asked, Can I take you somewhere? Mary hesitated. Where? You'll see. Curiosity won out. She agreed. He picked her up. No flowers, no big gestures, just him, showing up. And he drove them to a hilltop just outside the city, where you could see the skyline twinkle beneath the stars. They sat on the hood of his car, wrapped in a shared blanket, silence stretching comfortably between them. I used to think losing you was the worst thing that ever happened to me, William said quietly. Now I know the worst thing was being with you and not realizing what I had. Mary's eyes stung, but she didn't cry. She just rested her head on his shoulder. That night, when you said I lived in my feelings, she whispered, you made me feel like loving deeply was wrong, like caring that much was embarrassing. William turned to her, eyes honest. That's what I admired most, and I turned it against you, because I was ashamed that I couldn't match it. Mary closed her eyes. This wasn't an apology in the usual sense. It was something deeper, raw, real, and maybe, just maybe, the first step toward a version of them that never had the chance to exist before. The following week was slow and quiet, like the hush before a storm, but not the kind that breaks things, the kind that clears the air. Mary started smiling more, not because everything was healed, but because she was finally breathing in a space that wasn't suffocating. She still had doubts. Trust didn't return just because someone said sorry, but William wasn't trying to rush her. He wasn't trying to earn her back. He was just showing up and staying. They met for coffee now and then, walked in the park, talked about books, music, places they'd always wanted to visit but never did. And while the past still hung between them, it didn't suffocate the present. One night, they went to a small outdoor market. It wasn't planned, just a spontaneous suggestion after dinner. The place buzzed with light and laughter, food trucks, old jazz playing from a speaker nearby. It felt like a world apart from the one they'd shared. Before as they walked side by side, William reached out, not for her hand, but for her attention. Do you remember this? He asked, stopping in front of a stall selling hand-painted postcards. Mary looked. She did. Years ago, on a trip to New Orleans, they'd bought a postcard just like the ones on display. Back then, They'd promised to send one to themselves. From every trip, they never did. She smiled. We never even mailed the first one. William picked up a card and handed it to her. Let's start now. Mary took it gently. Are you saying we're traveling together? I'm saying, he said, meeting her eyes, that wherever you go, I'll show up the right way this time. If you let me. She didn't answer. Not yet, but she tucked the card in her coat pocket and didn't let go. Later, as they walked toward the parking lot, a figure stepped into view near the exit. Tall, lean, dressed in a sharp gray coat. Reynaldo. William stiffened. Mary paused. Reynaldo raised a hand. Hey. William's voice dropped, cautious. What are you doing here? I heard, Reynaldo said carefully, that you were seeing her again. I came to talk, not to interfere. Mary narrowed her eyes. Talk to who? To you, Reynaldo said, turning to her. I don't know what Williams told you, but I think you should know he didn't cheat. Not with Erica. Not with anyone. Not even when things got bad. William glanced at Mary, then back at Reynaldo. Why are you saying this? Because I was the one who told you to move on, Reynaldo admitted. I told you to stop trying, that she wouldn't forgive you, and I was wrong. Mary looked between them, something hard to name rising in her chest. I appreciate you saying that, she said slowly, but I never thought he cheated. That was never the point. Reynaldo blinked, surprised. Then what? He left me lonely in a room full of people, she said. He made me feel invisible while still being in love with me. That's worse than cheating. William didn't flinch. He didn't defend himself. He just nodded, like he'd been waiting for that truth to finally be spoken aloud. Reynaldo looked at William, a quiet guilt in his eyes. Then I guess I don't have anything else to say. He turned and walked away, leaving behind a strange stillness. Mary and William stood there for a moment, watching the night return to calm. I didn't ask him to come, William said. I know. You okay? Mary looked at him, then exhaled slowly. I'm still figuring that out. They got into the car and drove back in silence. The kind of silence that isn't empty but full of thought, of emotion, of all the things still to be said. When they reached her apartment, she didn't get out right away. She turned to him. I'm not ready for all of this. Not yet. William nodded. Take all the time you need. But I'm not walking away either. His eyes flickered, something like relief sparking in them. Then I'll wait, as long as it takes. She smiled, soft but real. You already waited too long. Don't waste this chance. That night, she placed the postcard on her nightstand. She still hadn't written on it, but she would, when the moment was right. The final stretch of healing wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, layered with moments that looked ordinary on the outside. Coffee made in silence, slow conversations over dinner, late-night walks where neither of them reached for the other's hand, but both wanted to. Mary took her time, not because she wanted to punish William, but because she had learned not to ignore her own pace just to match someone else's comfort. She had changed, not completely, not in a way that erased the softness in her heart, but she was no longer the version of herself who would shrink to be loved. And William, he was different too. The man who once rolled his eyes at her emotions now asked about her thoughts without trying to solve them. He didn't flinch when she talked about the hurt. He didn't make promises, just consistent effort. He wasn't desperate. He was just there. Every time she looked up, one night, they sat on her couch, a storm tapping gently on the windows, and for the first time in a long while, it didn't feel like the past was hovering in the room. Mary turned to him. Do you still feel guilty? William looked at her, thoughtful. Every day. But I also know guilt can't build a future. She nodded, appreciating the honesty. I don't want a perfect ending. I just want peace. And I want to know that if we try again, you won't run from the version of me that feels too much. I don't run anymore, he said. You taught me how to stay, even when it's hard. It wasn't a grand declaration. It was soft, steady, real. The next morning, Mary pulled the postcard out of the drawer. The one William had handed her at the market. The one she couldn't bring herself to write on before. She sat at her desk and with careful strokes of her pen, wrote, We didn't start over. We started from where it broke. And we built from the cracks, not in spite of them but because of them. She slipped it into an envelope, wrote her own address on it, and mailed it. A week later, it arrived in her mailbox, like a quiet promise returned. They didn't move in together right away. They didn't label anything too quickly. They let the relationship breathe, gave it space to grow on new soil. But they made time, real time, shared weekends, late calls. They showed up not for the image of love, but for the real thing. And though Mary still had bad days, moments when doubt crept in and whispered, remember how it felt to be dismissed, she never kept those thoughts to herself anymore. She spoke them out loud. And William didn't flinch. He listened. He held them like they mattered. Eventually, months later, on a cold evening under the same hilltop stars where they first rebuilt their silence, William pulled something small from his coat pocket. Not a ring. Not yet. A new postcard. This one read, "Let's keep choosing each other, even when it's hard." Mary took it from him and smiled. This time, she didn't hesitate. She signed her name on the back and tucked it into her bag. There were no fireworks, no cheers, just a quiet understanding between two people who had nearly lost each other forever, and somehow found their way back, not because love was easy, but because, in the end, they both decided it was worth the fight. The end.